that Black Sea is in Europe and is adjacent to Crimea, which was earlier part of Ukraine, and before that, much before that, part of Soviet Union or Russian Federation. And there is a problem there because of the acquisition of Crimea by Russian Federation in 2014. And then the Ukraine conflict, which starts on February 22nd of 2022. Now, in that context, since there is a port, Odisha, which is of Ukraine, which is the major grain exporting port to Europe, rest of the world. So about 100 countries, the grains go from there. Wheat is one of them. Ukraine is a very large producer of wheat, largest in Europe, but one of the largest in the world. So is Russia. And there are other grains also. Barley is there, and then maize is there, which is exported from there. So last year, 38 million tons of grains were exported from Odisha by Ukraine, with the courtesy of this agreement, which was there. And what is that? It is not agreement, it is MOU. And the MOU was that though the war situation was there between Ukraine and Russia, that the grain should be allowed to be exported. It was a two-way MOU, which was brokered by Turkey, because that's in the corner, and by the UN. And what was it? Because Russia had said that Ukraine ships carry and bring arms, so they should be inspected.
Right.
So they would not allow Russians to inspect it, and Russians would not like the ships to come unless they are inspected. So in the name of grains, they are dealing in arms. And so since they are at war, we have to be careful about it. So Turkey became an intermediate place where incoming ships and outgoing ships from the Ukrainian ports were inspected. Okay, that was one. And second was the Russian Federation said that we would allow these to go out. We will give it protection also. But there is the other side of the story, that our grain, there should not be any restriction of transport. Now, what is this restriction? It's a different issue because there are sanctions on that. Now, among the sanctions were specific sanctions on the wheat trade. That means the Agricultural Bank of Russia could not be part of SWIFT. Therefore, it could not receive any payments. And Russia also sends grains to about 100 countries.
Right.
It's as large. And so after agreeing to it last year in July 2022, then the NATO members and others forgot about it. And the second was about fertilizers. Both of them are also large producers of fertilizer. But the exports from Russia are very large as far as fertilizers are concerned. So they specifically sanctioned the chief executive of the largest fertilizer company. The West did that. With the result that he can't sign, and his sign is not acceptable. So the fertilizer exports could not take place. So on one side, they were saying that, United Nations also included, that's because of Russia that, food security is affected, etc., etc. But this is both sides of the story. Now, this time, UN Secretary General has specifically said that here is a letter I have written about 7 days before 17th July to tell them that their agriculture bank subsidy can be there and that will be exempted from sanction, but that will be done only by European Union and not US.
Not US. Right.
Neither here nor there, because the system of SWIFT is of USA. It's not of European Union. Right? So, and then they created the impression that Russia has terminated the agreement, which is technically not correct because it was renewed for 3 times for a quarter, or 4 times, and 4th time it has not been renewed. Not been renewed because Russia says our condition on that. We are willing to allow this grain to go out, etc., etc. But the inspection will have to be there, and our grain should also be allowed to go out. Otherwise, what you're doing is you are raising the price of that grain in the market, because our grain is not going on. Right? This is not fair. There are two sides to the problem. Now, there are impacts of either interpretation as well. So while the NATO members and the media generally have been saying that Russia has not done a good thing because it will affect the food security, but to counter that, the Russian president has convened a meeting of all the major African nations in the coming week. So he will be explaining to them.
Right.
And partly what he might be explaining is that, okay, I'll directly supply to you. What are you bothered about? From which place I supply is my problem.
Right. But don't you think they are just roping or looping Africa to take advantage of it?
No, it is not so. Because last year also, the quote-unquote excuse was of the UN that food security is involved. United Nations Food Program, UNFP, needs a lot of wheat, and Ukraine supplies a lot of wheat, and hence we need that. Now you look at the statistics. This is where the issue comes, that if you have stats-based or fact-based discussion, and then see what the policy should be. See? Policy on part of the traders, policy on the part of government, our government, other governments, and so 36 million tons of Ukraine food grains were exported last year. Okay. 17 July to 16 July. UN Secretary General's figure is 746,000. That means less than a million. That means less than 3%. Actually less than 2% went to what we call the developing countries.
Right.
Under the United Nations Food Program, 746,000, 746,000, 746,000 tons went to them.
But is it creating a lot of opportunity for a country like India?
See, it immediately did last year also. They asked us, just like it had happened COVID, but I don't want to go too much into COVID at this stage. Situation was similar. They asked India, but the immediate prices had gone up. Now, last 2 days, the prices globally, in Chicago Exchange, in Paris Exchange, and everywhere else, that is wheat exchanges, they have gone up by 8%.
8%, right. 8%.
Now, this is just 1 or 2 days. So, when the negotiations started with the UN last year, prices in India went up.